Now, today we're dealing with what I think is one of the most relevant aviation accidents over the past 5 years at least. We all know about Azerbaijan Airlines Flight 8243 that happened yesterday and moved the whole world. Originally scheduled from Heydar Aliyev International Airport in Baku of Azerbaijan to the Kadyrov Grozny International Airport in Chechnya, Russia, which first suffered from immense GPS jamming to then be diverted to the city of Aktau in Kazakhstan, where it ultimately lost control and collided with the field. While primarily Azerbaijan Airlines suggested that this was a bird strike, it was pretty clear from the start that a bird strike doesn't usually cause a loss of control like this. Nor does the ERJ-190 come down from the skies like this at all. We're talking about a sophisticated, barely 11-year-old airplane. It was very quickly clear that we're dealing with an airplane that was shot down. Obviously, clear imagery of bullet holes in the tail section of the aircraft makes this suggestion more likely. Here in the tail section of the Embraer is where the hydraulic fluids of this airplane run through. And if you're able to penetrate through all the 3 hydraulic systems that the Embraer has, you're able to have this airplane get out of control. We live, of course, in the 21st century where everyone has a smartphone that can record high-definition video. Here's a video from the interior of the airplane just before it crashed, and we can see obvious signs that there were even bullet holes in the cabin. Look, what is that over there? What is this loose panel? Here's another interior view where we can see outside of the window, where we can see the flap track fairings, you know, the covers that practically cover the hinges and the tracks of the flaps, severely damaged, hit by something that I would assume is indeed artillery. Some artillery shot the airplane indeed, and it is highly suggested that some Russian air defense system downed the airplane. In fact, the news outlet Reuters suggests that these bullet wounds could have been from the Pantsir missile system of Russia, which would definitely not be the first time. I mean, you might remember the Malaysia Airlines Flight 17 that was shot down by Russian separatist forces. I mean, the crash came shortly after Ukrainian drone strikes hit southern Russia, and because of that drone activity, the airports and airspaces in the area should have been closed. Because while I'll believe, yes, maybe this plane was not shot down on purpose, but rather was maybe confused with a drone and then shot down, the idea that Russia shut down the airplane is probably one thesis that fits all the available facts that we have right now. Although today the Kremlin warned that jumping to, conclusions quickly would be very unwise. But let's go ahead and rewind the situation for now. The airplane took off at exactly 7:55 local time from Baku's runway 34 and climbed out. Please don't mind the Japan Airlines livery right here. Anyway, all was well until it crossed the Russian border. Here at 30,000 feet, we kind of lose track of what happens with the airplane for quite a bit of a while, and so we have to kind of rely on what the passengers say. But we have to remember, GPS spoofing by the Russians is something that's been happening for a long time now, and that's something that the pilots are trained for and, are probably prepared for in a flight like this. No trouble at all. The plane then apparently descended then into Grozny Airport indeed, tried to land there. Problem was, the weather was really bad. The airplane had to go around 3 times. As far as I know, the Grozny Airport does not have an instrument landing system, which is bad. I mean, while the airplane apparently was flying there, the METAR suggested that the cloud coverage, the overcast, went down to 800 feet above ground, which is not at all usable for a visual approach. And apparently on the 3rd attempt, there was a loud bang that was reported by the passengers. Apparently an explosion blew through the aircraft skin, and that's where all the trouble started happening. The airplane then was diverted to Makhachkala to do an emergency landing there, but also there, the weather was poor, with the airplane being unable to land. Although I do have to say the airport META of Makhachkala shows relatively more usable weather. We don't even know right now whether it was the pilot's decision to not land at Makhachkala or if it was the Russians. There are some people saying that they apparently denied landing there. The thing is, we don't really know. The flight then flew all the way across the Caspian Sea to Aktau in Kazakhstan, which is the only time where it actually reappeared on the radar, giving a distress signal of squawk 7700, immense problems. At 9:49, the pilots requested an emergency landing at the Aktau International Airport, where they reported a loss of the control system. once again caused by the bullet holes. With immensely varying speed and altitude reported, the pilots tried to land the airplane with direct control mode, which is something known from Airbus planes as well. Direct law is kind of like the way to control the airplane if everything else fails, telling the computers to practically take a hike and, well, have the pilot be in direct control of the flight control surfaces through the cables that are still connected to the yoke, which means immensely hard of a job to control the surfaces of the airplane indeed. Also, I think the landing gear was put out using the emergency actuator system. To prepare for the emergency landing there at Aktau, then, the airplane completed 2 turns near the Aktau airport, where I reckon the pilots tried to see, can we still fly this thing? And as the airplane made its 3rd turn at 11:30 local time, the airplane struck the ground, with its right wing hitting first at an immense force, to the point where I'm honestly surprised that quite a few people survived this horrible crash. Out of the 67 people on board, 32 survived, as you can see most of them in the tail. There's a lot of videos online. Here's a bit of a seat map of the surviving passengers and deceased passengers, and you can very much see why this difference between tail section of airplane and front section of airplane is. Since the airplane tumbled, exploded, broke into 2 major pieces, followed by an immense fireball. The airplane, of course, impacted with the gear still deployed. This is definitely a very bitter Christmas. In my opinion, the airplane being shot down by Russian anti-drone gunning makes the most sense. And now we will begin a phase of a lot of, blame guessing. I mean, this is a very highly political topic. The Aviation Herald, which is a great source of aviation news, stated, as of current, there are some political and military agendas and propagandas going on trying to blame the accident on a shootdown by air defense in Russia, or attackers onto Russia, which is a possibility for sure. We're after all looking at 16 passengers who were Russian indeed. And this blame game I won't play, although I understand that giving Russia the benefit of the doubt is something that people are not inclined to do. And I actually hate making videos like this, because we're all talking about assumptions. The whole world is assuming, which is something that might be immoral, because people deceased on this airplane, and we will definitely need some patience to know who's to blame for this crash, and to know who to sanction for this crash. All I can say is that I have the uttermost respect for the pilots of the airplane, especially Igor Kuzhnyakin, who really did try their best to save the airplane and somehow bring it down in a matter so people could survive, which happened. But before we can put the blame on anyone, we will have to wait, and that's what I say we must do. And in the meantime, thank you so much for watching this little video, and I'll see you guys tomorrow as always. Good night.